Good evening. Perhaps because they have tried before and failed, perhaps because they could now conceivably strike the west coast of the United States, when North Korea successfully fired off a multi-stage ballistic missile late last night, it got the world's attention and it set off a lot of alarms. The U.S. has condemned it along with much of the rest of the world. And while the U.S. is now technically within range, so are a lot of other countries that are much closer. It's where we begin tonight with our chief foreign affairs correspondent, Andrea Mitchell, in our D.C. newsroom. Andrea, good evening.
Good evening, Brian. After failing 4 times before, U.S. officials say this time the North Koreans succeeded, launching a satellite into space on a 3-stage rocket with the range to reach the western U.S. They were celebrating in Pyongyang after this announcement by a very excited anchor on North Korea's government newscast. The 3-stage rocket carried a satellite, not a warhead. But U.S. officials say this was a weapons test, not a peaceful space launch. 3 stages flying south between China and South Korea. One booster stage dropped in the Yellow Sea. Another fell near the Philippines. The satellite was wobbling, not a clean orbit, according to radar prepositioned to track it around the globe. Still, it was a major boost for the North's fledgling leader, Kim Jong-un, in power only a year. The launch was also believed timed to intimidate South Korea, set to hold elections next week. Its president held a national security meeting today in an underground bunker. China offered rare criticism of Pyongyang, its ally. NBC's Ian Williams in Beijing.
But we have a new leadership here in Xi Jinping, and there are signs that he may be less indulgent of North Korea, less indulgent of a nation which officials here privately have likened to a spoilt child.
But China is not likely to support a U.S. call for tougher UN sanctions against the North.
Any launch using ballistic missile technology, no matter how North Korea chooses to characterize it, is in fact a serious violation of 2 Security Council resolutions.
And despite years of sanctions and famine, North Korea continues to spend billions on weapons.
They made the calculation that despite the other sanctions, despite the other activities, they were going to pursue this nuclear weapon program, when literally they have countrymen who are starving to death.
Now experts fear the next step.
A nuclear test could be the next provocation. These things tend to come in cycles, and so it's not a good sign that they're starting down the provocation road again.
And China does have the most leverage over its North Korean neighbor. The White House does plan a tougher line with the Chinese, telling them it should pressure the North Koreans to stop, or else expect a much larger American naval presence in their backyard. Brian?
Andrea Mitchell starting us off from Washington tonight. Andrea, thanks.